and you can do those live, come on screen with us, or you can do it in the chat box as well. Okay. Sean, how are you doing? We've got, I'll just let you start when you're ready.
Okay, perfect. Cool. Give everyone a minute or so to just get in, and then we'll get rolling. All right, so hi everyone, I'm Sean Frankson, co-founder of the Plastic Bank, and I'm here to talk about a really interesting design challenge that I've been working on for the last 7 years, and that's stopping ocean plastic. And it's amazing when we think that there's a garbage truck of plastic entering the ocean every single minute of every day. I mean, by 2050, they say there's going to be more plastic in the ocean than fish. But we've come to realize when we look at it as a plastic problem, we start looking at it the wrong way, because this really is a human problem, a human behavior problem, and a human problem is something that can be solved. And we started to look at how do we get to the root cause of this. We looked at this childhood metaphor that if you walk into a kitchen and the sink is overflowing with water, pouring on the floor, and all you have is a bucket and a mop, what do you do first? The answer is simply turn off the tap. And we started to look at ocean plastic through that lens of how do we turn off the tap? We really started to look for business solutions. And what we uncovered is that most ocean plastic actually starts on land in developing countries where there's almost no waste management systems. This is Peru, where as soon as it rains, all the plastic from the riverbeds be washed from the rivers into the ocean. This is the Philippines, and Southeast Asia is one of the worst polluters of ocean plastic. This is Indonesia, where before it even gets to the ocean, it gets stuck in the mangrove forests, where the last resort from saving it still litters the land. And this is Haiti. And all too often around the world, these images are more real than most people realize. And we started to look at why. You know, most of these have no waste management systems. There's nowhere to put the plastic. So when people throw something away, it has to go somewhere, and all too often away means the ocean. And the irony is that plastic has more value than steel, pound for pound. So think of it this way. If a plastic bottle was worth $1, you wouldn't see a single bottle anywhere on the ground. Yet it doesn't have to be worth $1 to reveal the value in plastic. And this is really the paradigm that we had at the Plastic Bank. How could we reveal value in plastic? How could we reveal value in people and make plastic too valuable to enter the ocean? So at Plastic Bank, we set up ethical recycling ecosystems where people in developing countries like Haiti, Philippines, Indonesia, Brazil, Egypt, can all go collect the plastic from their environment, collect it from the households of business, bring it to their local plastic bank, where they then can deposit that value into a safe account. They can get cash, items, necessities, and even earn a better life, such as health insurance, earn a pension, earn the things that they need to get a life beyond recycling. All the plastic from our programs is brought to our recycling partners where it's processed and then put into new products. So if you've ever seen a Windex bottle like SC Johnson has, they use social plastic from our programs. And when we started to look and ideate, how do we design this? How do we bring this to the world? We had a couple key things to actually do this right. One, when we were looking at the scope of how do we do this, it was really our mission to gather 1 billion people together to regenerate the earth. And we want to go beyond sustainability and think, how can every community be better because we're there? How can we improve people's lives and not just, give a product? And again, how can we build something that's not meant to just include a couple people, but it's really designed to scale from day one? And as we started to look into these communities like Haiti, where you have such a vulnerable, population, where there's no advantages, rarely have electricity, this is when we really started to look at how can we be inclusive to the most vulnerable? How do we design a system that an illiterate person who's never used a phone before can still participate, use our application, and get the full value of the program? And we've also had to learn, how do we design an imperfect ecosystems and phase in a program where we can just put in these last mile problem solving one after one. And when we look at the concept of us being a supply chain, of us having a plastic that goes into a product, we really wanted to redefine what responsible plastic is. So when we have our social plastic, we really strive to create the gold standard of a supply chain that's ethical, traceable, and scalable. And this is what I'm going to show you how we do. And really, one of the heart of it, we had to ask one important question. Again, when we look at a country like Haiti, and one of our first prompts is, how do we put millions of dollars into a place like Haiti and ensure it goes to the right people? And this is where blockchain came up as something that could really help us out. And I'm just going to do a quick dive just into how we use blockchain and really just simplify what it is, because I find the world overhypes blockchain. I find so many people want to sound so smart and impressive by overcomplicating blockchain, but really it's just a shared digital ledger that approves and records an exchange of something between two or more people when trust is required. So for us, again, blockchain is just our ledger of choice. And again, for all the hype you've heard, blockchain doesn't need to be cryptocurrencies. It's just when info needs to change between two or more parties and you really want to trust that that info is legit, blockchain is a great trust stamp for it. It's distributed, meaning it's all the parties have the same access to everything. So to hack a blockchain, you have to hack every point of that system, which becomes really hard to do. In addition to the fact that it's completely encrypted at one of the highest levels. And one of the fun things from the design side and the business side, when you can tokenize something using blockchain, you can really have a lot of control over how the data flows, how assets are managed. And in our case, we wanted to bring in our own digital payment system, and a tokenized payment system is an incredibly easy system to do in a secured way. And it's also trustless, meaning we don't need third parties to approve something. In our case, the system approves everything. So when we want to give people a blockchain ID, a blockchain digital wallet, we have a special bonus program where people earn over the market rate. We do all of this through a blockchain system. And just to quickly highlight a couple things where a lot of people, when they think blockchain, they get just really fixated on thinking of Bitcoin. But it's so important to realize that blockchain isn't Bitcoin. Bitcoin essentially just utilizes blockchain to run a Bitcoin. And the big thing when people think of Bitcoin, a lot of these cryptocurrencies with these fluctuating, crazy fake pricing, for us, one token is 1 US cent. It's called a stable coin. And we have it back to that US dollar so that there's always trust in how it's working. Now, a lot of people also think decentralized, where no one owns or runs a Bitcoin. It's all community-based. For us, we are the central authority in our business blockchain. We have everything set up using IBM's blockchain and Hyperledger Fabric to have complete control, and we're the ones responsible for all the decision-making for everything in the system that automates these transactions. And also, again, one of the big problems when you look at something like a Bitcoin, people can use it for a legal transaction because it's all anonymous. For us, it's completely transparent. We know who everyone is. Everyone else doing a transaction knows who the other is. And that blockchain-based ID, for us, brings more trust and transparency into our supply chain. And then the last thing I'll say on blockchain before moving on to really the core of what we do, I've once had someone email me and say, you guys are hypocrites. You say you want to save the environment, yet use blockchain, and blockchain is terrible for the environment. It is true Bitcoin is terrible for the environment, but blockchain doesn't have to be. In fact, when I got our guys to look at what is the transaction cost of energy on our blockchain, it's actually 20 million times less than the cost of a Bitcoin transaction. And in fact, one transaction on our system is 1/10 the cost of sending an email. So again, just when you think blockchain, think trust, don't necessarily think Bitcoin, because it's so important, again, with our program, where we empower collectors to improve their lives through recycling. They don't see blockchain. They see the very first time they've had an ID, the very first time they've had a savings account. And this is where it's so critical, where our average user, like you see here, is Lisa Nassim in Haiti, 7 kids widowed after an earthquake. And recycling became her first form of livelihood to start providing for her family. Her kids go to school. And now even in our programs, when we look at how do we onboard someone in these vulnerable communities, part of becoming a Plastic Bank member, they get basic literacy training, basic education. They get access to a cell phone, which then gives them savings for the first time because they have a blockchain secured account. And our collection members can vary from every single community. We can have full-time collectors like Lise. We have part-time, we have community members. And everywhere we are, our programs get customized. Lise was from Haiti, and these are collectors from the Philippines, where it's localized, the uniforms they wear, the hats they have, everything. Our branches all look different at different locations, because we really want to make everything we do feel like their Plastic Bank membership program, never something from afar. We also often work and adapt our system to work with cooperatives. Instead of just having a single point of business run a local community, instead of having us run it, a cooperative is when groups of people all get together and share in the values, support each other. And our system's designed to work for both individual businesses and cooperatives. And we also include the communities. In a place like Bali, which has a slightly higher income than some of other areas, instead of it just being a collector's program, there's ways that everyone in the community can go recycle, participate on their way to the local market. Quite often in Bali, people bring it to the local Plastic Bank and get the value that they need. And the commonality through our Plastic Bank application is that everyone's registered, they're given an ID, a trust score, and a digital wallet. And again, when we looked at how do we design for these unique systems, how do we design for really having a system that the poorest of the poor need access to, we created a 3-level membership system where a level 1 member has no phone. And this is a reality for so many people. Even when you say 90% of everyone in the Philippines has a phone, it means that 10% that don't is always that poorest of the poor who needs it the most. So we work on a way for someone to phase into getting their first phone, getting their ID, where we can have a level 1 membership account where they can still transact at that Plastic Bank branch that registered them. And we just have a lot of safety features to make sure they can do that, where they can still earn their digital savings, save, and safely spend it at our locations. A level 2 account for someone has a verified phone and can have a text message code to approve a transaction. But we really try to get everyone to earn their first smartphone, have the application where they can have full control over their entire account. And this is the power of giving someone their first ever savings account, which is especially so important, especially for most of our collectors. We target women in the area to have a livelihood, but have a savings that can be separate from their husbands, because quite often a woman in some of these areas has the least control over what happens with their money. But in this case, we give someone a safe savings that they have full control of. So our members have a digital wallet, a trust score, and they can also find wherever their nearest Plastic Bank is. They can find where they can cash out their digital tokens, where they can spend it in our markets, and get full visibility into how much different plastic's worth, where to bring it, and what's the closest to them. Now, in addition to the collection system we have, really the heart of what we uniquely do is we set up these Plastic Bank branches. In an area that there's no Plastic Bank branches, we'll set something up from scratch, mostly like the way we set up in Haiti. But in a lot of places in Southeast Asia, there already are small entrepreneurs in the community, sometimes they're called junk shops, who started these collection points. And we've realized we don't need to or want to go in and compete and put anyone out of business. So instead, we created a certification program where we can certify the existing collection ecosystems to start recycling using our application, following our code of conduct, our no child labor rules, our safety. And for doing that, everyone receives a special bonus payment on top of the market rate of plastic, which really just makes it good business for those people to participate in the programs. And like our collectors, the same application has a business interface where any staff member at one of our certified locations can use the Plastic Bank app to run their business with a complete point of sale system. And it really is a full business in your pocket, where every single business has a trust score based on how active they've been for their normal amount of active members, how much they've recycled in the month, and if they're on target for what they normally do. But most importantly, we also track that they sell that plastic to our processing partners, because when through the application, we have that complete audit trail of the collector bringing it to a branch, the branch selling it to a processor, we have complete trust that it's real people, real plastic, because no processing partner buys fake plastic, which is how we get complete trust and visibility. And as you'll see in this, we build a lot of measures of how do we just build trust from a distance, because as I'll get to at the end, a digital business is how you can thrive in an area like COVID, where all of a sudden what was once a face-to-face, once something, everything was done on site, now needs to be done from a distance. And for us, our auditing, our trust, our real-time reporting, at a distance has been an absolute savior during these hard times. So just like our members, there's a digital account. Someone can cash it out to their local digital payment system, where we partner with usually the telecoms, the digital wallets in every country. So if there's a preferred digital payment system at any time, any of our members can click the green cash out button and cash out what they have. So our branches have a complete business in their pocket. They get control over inventory. And in addition, everyone has something in it. They're not just doing it because it's nice to be a part of the plastic bank. Really, people aren't doing it to stop ocean plastic. When we certify our locations, they're doing it because it just becomes good business. So for our collectors, there's a normal market rate of plastic, which fluctuates. We pay a special bonus payment on top of it to ensure that there's always a social impact. And now we're just introducing a benefit fund where they receive special tokens that actually go towards a long-term pension, health insurance, and other livelihood milestones that for them just come as free rewards for recycling and participating in the programs. And for our branches and certified locations, their collectors make more money, bring in more plastic. They make more by that volume, but they also receive a special bonus on top of the market price when we verify they sold the right plastic. And all of this is what brings in this system of trust. And, to really simplify it, to remove the blockchain, to remove everything like that, the way our members just perceive everything, someone comes in, they load the member's account by either scanning a QR code on their phone or on a card, either by putting in their name if they've been to the location before, or registering them if they're there for the first time. But once they load up that account, they simply weigh the plastic, select what type of plastic, put in the weight, and put in the transaction. Doing that is pretty much an entire audit chain for our clients, that when they have a product, when they want to know where exactly did this plastic came from, who collected this plastic, how do I know everyone was registered of age, this is all done in real time just by clicking that button once and all the data is there. Now our systems also work for all plastic types, all material types, where we can have different metals, different, glass, cardboard, whatever can be recycled for value, our system can do. And we have what types of types, colors, different measurements, really whatever a local community needs for this recycling business, they have a tool to do it. And it's also, what's most importantly from our design prompt here, it's fully localized to that local community. We see everything in English, kilos, and US dollars in our back-end system, but they see local currency, the local measurements, local language. They can even customize what different plastic types and materials are, because even island for island in a place like Philippines or Indonesia could have different nuances in how they say different material types, and they just see exactly what they need by design. So to get more visual here and a little less technical, a lot of our plastic banks aren't just a recycling market. It's really a community hub where someone can deposit that value and not just get money, but also get other necessities. In Haiti, they can get solar power cell phone charging, cooking fuel, food, supplies. And what's so important on this, not everyone wants to recycle for money, but when you recycle for food, when you recycle for these other things, the rest of the community who has, say, another job, a part-time job, even a full-time job, sees recycling as a way just to bring in their plastic and get free food, bring in their plastic and get free cooking fuel. All of a sudden, this plastic has value. And once they start seeing the value in plastic by getting the free things by bringing in their plastic from home, they start to see the collectors as someone with value, and it really starts to dignify recycling, and something that quite honestly is often called a waste picking industry, a scavenging industry. But when we can dignify it, both by the way someone's earning and providing for their family, but also by the way they're perceived by the community, we really start to reveal the value in people who recycle, which is core at what we do. And we have an interesting opportunity where even in our own locations, we start to look at how can we train the community to be closed loop minded, to be responsible. In Indonesia, we've launched programs where people can even bring in their refillable containers for shampoos, for soap, for cleaning detergents. And we look at how can we actually be a root cause solution to that paradigm to treat plastic responsibly. In Haiti, when we look at first mile problem solving, about 90% of people don't have access to electricity. 75% of people make less than $2 a day. And when we look at how do we bring these programs to life, how do we have these programs that are really community driven, we started by looking at solving one of our own problems of how can we have Wi-Fi access so that our application works. And we realized if we bring in solar power, we can then have solar power Wi-Fi, solar power cell phone charging, and invite that the community can have access to it. And what we found, this becomes the only source of lighting for many of the communities we're in, where our plastic bank locations actually become a community hub, something the community loves and cherishes because it's their community recycling center. This is the only safe place at night to read, to congregate. And again, it just gets perceived so different when we localize what that need is and make it a part of what the value the community gets. And this is a lot of what we talk about regenerating a community, where our business doesn't take from the community. And we try to work with our partners of how can your product help make the communities better and not just take from what you get. And even when we look at this root cause program, we've now branched beyond just our locations to also have programs within schools, and even churches around the world, where when people congregate together, it's a beautiful opportunity to educate people on why they should be responsible with plastic. And when we can start with the youth and have them realize that what their parents do by recycling is an absolutely great thing to do, they can start from day one knowing that there's a responsible way to recycle. And what we often do in Haiti, we have programs where the children of our collectors can have the school tuition subsidized by recycling, and ensure it's our mission that every daughter goes to school. And around the world, that is not always the case, but it's something we continue to build in the programs where recycling can be the starting point to a better life. Now, our processing partners who bale or flake the plastic, they also can use our platform and application to register everything, to have complete transparency. And again, for our partners, when we can bring in large deals that go for years and years, there's just good business for everyone to participate. And we continue to work in that way, and that the rest of the world needs to recycle to stop the ocean plastic. But really, a lot of the people in these countries and these ecosystems want to recycle towards a better life. And all of this plastic, as I says, goes into our products. We're, great companies like Henkel, SC Johnson. We've just started working with Coca-Cola Philippines and other large partners where they know if they need to use a plastic, they want to use one of the most responsible plastics you can, something that does give back to the people, but also stops ocean plastic, because it really starts to connect with that modern consumer who doesn't want to do harm with their products, but also wants to still be able to, consume in a way that's giving more than they're taking. And this is really something that we offer. Again, SC Johnson's Windex bottles, very iconic, use our plastic. And a lot of these companies work with us for a couple reasons. There's now a family legacy around what a brand stands for. And there's this changing times where consumers want to know that they're not doing bad, where even the staff at companies want to know that they're part of something more purposeful. And we're able to enliven this. And what I've found, a lot of our clients who really get it, who really get that you can't have hidden supply chains of food, of coffee beans. This is really the new future of plastic, where it's dangerous to have a hidden supply chain, where when we first started, what are we building and what is kind of the design scope? For me, it was really this one simple question of, can your recycled plastic supply chain pass an audit back to the point of collection? Because when I can show you a blockchain verified report that shows who collected it, brought it in at what time to what location, where it was sold with complete trust and transparency, I don't have time to get into it today, but we have auditing programs. We have a whole code of conduct. We have all these systems to trust who someone is, trust the process, and really have it that our clients can trust that if they have to use plastic, this really is the most trusted way to use a recycled plastic that's making an authentic impact. And this is where, again, it's a whole platform for us where we have the application that our collectors, that our branches use. We have a whole dashboarding system you see in the middle that our clients get access to a real-time dashboard with an audit trail, with an exact impact stamp of how many people, how many kilos of plastic. We capture the stories, have our supply chain mapping, and have everything they need to have trust in the system. And then on top of that, we have an entire back-end platform where our team can manage everything we're doing, get complete visibility. And I'm proud to say the last 3 months in a row, we've recycled over 1 million kilos of plastic every single month. You see that fun little dip when COVID shut down the world in March and April, but then our teams figured out how to be resilient. And I'll dive into that shortly, but it's amazing when you have this transparency, when you have this digital system, we really started to learn how to adapt the ways that we can do things from a distance with complete transparency. So we have ability to see the open hours of our locations, how often they're transacting to make sure it's all done in real time. We get visibility into the trust scores so that not that we can kick people out of the program, but we can help and support someone who might be struggling. We can see if order volumes go up and down or on track. And all of this gives the team the ability to really manage and be there as a support network for vulnerable collection ecosystems. And when we look at the world of COVID, it was a really interesting challenge. We were so blessed in that, again, most of our clients are selling cleaning products, shampoos, things that were actually flying off the shelf during COVID, which meant all of our business, everything that we do to support these communities was able to be sustained because we were able to just go full tilt and how can we help without having to be defensive of how does our company stay through this. But we had to learn and adapt because it all of a sudden became dangerous to send people into new communities because we don't want to be putting our team in danger. We don't want to be spreading anything. And it really forced us to even sit down country by country in Haiti, Philippines, Indonesia, Brazil, Egypt. How do we do what we do better from a distance? And this was an amazing challenge where our team started to look at how can we do digital training? Like, could we do a WhatsApp call, a video chat instead of being in person? And this allowed us to actually start designing even training and onboarding systems from a distance. And our account management, the tools we started to build in was how, without being at a location, can we have all of the trust, the knowledge of what's happening, be able to see everything, and really be intentional and productive with our time, where for the first time, our country teams essentially moved to working remote. Our head office moved to working remote. And we've taken COVID as really a challenge of looking, it's not even just about what we're doing right now during this COVID, the realization that this probably will not be the last time the world sees something like this. So how do we take these learnings and lessons and build ourselves to thrive and be resilient the next time something happens and do it proactively? And what was interesting, we started to look at what is it that people need like during these times now? Is it relief loans? What is it? And really what almost all the communities came back to is if we had it where every single collector, just as part of their membership, had health insurance, had the IDs that got them into the hospitals, that got them somewhere, there's a way that we can be proactive in help, because by the time someone needs help, it's often too late. Quite often people need different things, where even to get an insurance policy, you have to pay the cash out front, get a receipt, and then expense it later. So part of our program even now allows someone to have a digital loan for the relief that they need for insurance, to then be able to pay the insurance, get the healthcare, get everything their family needs. But we've really taken COVID to learn how can we be proactive so that when disaster hits, we don't react, that we have a system in place that the most vulnerable people actually are taken care of. And this is something that is so important, because we've come to realize most of the governments do not take care of the poorest people first. It is an absolute afterthought. So we've really looked at how do we tweak the systems to ensure that when you're a member of the plastic bank. You are part of the family and you are protected as family. And this is something I've been so proud at how our team and community has all stepped up to look at how can we include everyone. And the last note that I'll say, one of the interesting things is when the COVID hit, many areas of the world went in complete quarantine, complete shutdown. We were actually able to get the recycling ecosystems open and classified as essential in the Philippines and some other areas when, our team was able to just talk to the government and realize that people who need to, do something to eat for the day, if you shut down that livelihood, you are shutting down every form of food, every form of something that these people so desperately need. And it really, in all of our regions, has been something we've been labeled as essential. And when you look at designing a business of something that's, a nice to have or a need to have, I really challenge, can you create a business? Can you design something that truly is essential? Because this is such a beautiful thing in someone's life when you can be the reason that they thrive through hard times. So that's about it for what I was going to talk about today. So I think it's time to open up the question and answer.
If you're still there, do you want to click the blue button and you can ask your question? Wonderful. Do you want to just try that again, Stella? Yes.
Hi, hello. Thank you, Sean. Really inspiring. Thanks for a nice talk. I had one question because I find this type of solutions really interesting. And so I kind of two questions. I'll just do in one go. One, is there a name for it? I heard you mention economy, but I couldn't quite understand what you said. And then the second question I had is, do you see this kind of community work also working in the West, for example, or in communities that are not that vulnerable?
Yeah, great question. So really, we have our plastic bank ecosystem. So the supply chain social plastic is what it's called, that when someone's putting it in a product, it's social plastic they're buying. But really, the ecosystems, everyone's kind of a member of our plastic bank membership benefit program. So, again, maybe I'm just biased as the tech side of this. I see it more of a membership benefit platform that happens to recycle than, a recycling platform. But your question about, places like Canada, Europe, right now we're just introducing programs where through the schools, through the churches, through businesses, people can kind of get these communities together to be recycling, to be part of these give back programs. And we're really exploring, how uniquely could it work, just because, the dollar difference of what's worth someone's time to be a full-time recycler is very different. In Vancouver, we're blessed to have a bottle return scheme. I know areas like Germany and some do have this where there is a recycling reward system. And, as our team grows, we're definitely going to look at that. But right now, most of our supply chains, most of our impact and, what we do uniquely well is how do we look at the most vulnerable people and have these systems. But that being said, 3 years ago, we were a 3-person team. Now we're about 100 and something. And, as our team builds and we have more brain power just focusing on doing things right, we really do hope to kind of unlock ways that everyone can participate. And even with our application, I'm working on kind of the next phase of how do we have a purpose platform where anyone can participate in their own meaningful way and authentically make an impact on the whole. So that's kind of my next project that I'm focusing on.
Great, thank you.
Hi. So, hi, Sean.
Yes, I was typing it because I wasn't sure if it was me technically. So I'm a super big fan of Design for Emotion, and I was wondering. I think that what you've described is absolutely brilliant, both in terms of processes and participation and sense of community. But I was really curious, like if I would speak to the people who are participating, how would they describe their emotional journey? What's the thing that's making them click into it?
Yeah, no, it's been such a blessing from my point too, where I've actually got to go to many communities, go to people's homes, talk about it. Like, I would never have imagined, exactly as you said, just the little things that emotionally make, the programs work. I know one of the first touching things when I was in Haiti for the first time, seeing the program, like after designing it, launching, being there for the coming back, even one of the person's stories was, because I collect, I'm now the kind of person that can wear shoes. And even that kind of thing is just, I can't imagine that statement of, again, the pride when someone says, like, my daughters now go to school. And I think especially as we built up like the digital side of things when I was last in like Southeast Asia, it is amazing the pride when someone is now included in a community that they're welcomed in. And I think there's a lot of times outside someone's immediate family, especially the poorest people quite often are kind of ostracized and, shunned upon by communities. And when we really have this thing where people are brought into a community, even with, uniforms, things that they're now part, when someone gets their first ID, gets their first digital savings, the pride in being a part of something, I think is something that really becomes that emotional side where, our country teams are just so amazing at how do we make it not a recycling program, but a community that everyone has loved and supported. And just one of the biggest stigmas that we had to get around, most people treat recycling as waste picking, scavenging, and it's a supply chain. And when we really look at our number one pain point is how do we both stabilize and bring up the incomes, but dignify recycling in every way possible. This is to me what I'm obsessed with. How do you unlock purpose in everyone's life? And,
yes.
So my personal obsession is, again, someone is at that absolute lowest point of the pyramid. How do you ascend them to the point that they truly have purpose in their life? It is kind of my personal design prompt in what we do.
It's beautiful and it's so uplifting. It gives you so much back as a designer.
Mm-hmm.
It's, even as you are sharing it with me, your whole nonverbal language is just, wow.
It makes it worth the crazy hour.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone got any more questions for Sean? If not, Sean, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So I have a question about how you expand this project. So for instance, if you want to go into a country that you haven't been into before, how do you do that? Do you do that through kind of like the systems and the sort of, the internal network, like the brands that you're already working with? And how do you sort of overcome, like, I guess, cultural and geographical barriers and things?
No, great question. This is something we kind of adapt over time and like it'll change a little bit. Right now, our expansion is usually based on, so a company like Henkel has a desire for like a closed loop system in Egypt where their products sell. How can they ensure their products get collected better? That they're making an authentic impact. So in this case, a Henkel has kind of an expansion contract with us to expand our infrastructure across Egypt, which is what we're just opening up now. So in this case, a major sponsor pays for the expansion so that they can get that supply chain that they need and guarantee it comes from this ethical place. So currently, a large part of our expansions have been companies like Henkel, SC Johnson funding regions that they really want to impact. Where we're kind of phasing to next is really there can be more government opportunities and things where, great, here's essentially what it takes to bring in a plastic bank. So we hire completely like local country managers with local regional managers and teams, usually a team of about 20 to 30 people, like in every country, where they can then properly go and train, support, and guide everyone. But really my goal kind of by the end of next year, or the year after, is how could anyone with a smartphone and a scale be onboarded, educated, and start making their like locations eligible for our plastic bank benefit and bonus program. So, you know, my dream is the day that, say, someone in Ghana is able to activate their own plastic bank ecosystem, you know, essentially have everything become certified, and they literally just unlock our rewards, bonus, and benefit program all from a distance. Because once we can do that, then the scale is just exponential.
That sounds really, really cool. And just sort of like to let it kind of, I guess, you know, spread by itself.
Yeah, no, that's the goal. And one of the big things, again, the fun challenge is, you know, we have to be everywhere or else it's not stopping ocean plastic. And we were pretty open about this as a company, that if we're just in a single community or two, it's a nice to have, you know, feel good project, doing good in those areas, but it's not the promise of stopping ocean plastic, because it's got to be everywhere or else, you know, it's just a microcosm of the problem.
Cool, that's super cool. So I can see 20 of you out there. So I don't know if you can. Would you like to join the discussion? There's heavy questions. It doesn't just have to be a question. It could be sharing your thoughts. So I have a thought, which is that I've just come back from 3 weeks in Croatia, not as a holiday, more as a kind of very luckily being able to work from home from someone else's home. And it's quite a small country of only about 5 million people, so it doesn't have the infrastructure like somewhere like and it's not as maybe just along the stage as something, you know, like other European countries, but you know, so I was just thinking like somewhere like that is really, you know, they're so ready for this in a way, because people do collect their glass and the bottles and things and take it to like a bank at Lidl or something, but there isn't any recycling stations there. So you could go to Croatia maybe. Well, actually not. It was just I was in the south, in the very far south, so I don't know what it's like in the north part, but there's certainly it wasn't any there. So, but yeah, but if there's any other questions, we'd love to hear from you, or if you've been other parts to know.
Hello, Albert.
Hello. Well, it was really nice. I actually know your project since some years, and I think that it's really cool. And this is actually just a thought. When you were talking about being essential, I thought, okay, but maybe this could sort of like make the project to be a bit of create dependency. So these communities are dependent on this project. I don't know if you think so, and if so, let's imagine that for some reason you cannot operate in a community in the future. Are you like investing in empowerment, like education that empowers the community? So in case that, I don't know, you cannot longer operate in there, I don't know, they can like, they have education so they can, I don't know, do something to sustain themselves.
No, you absolutely hit the nail. So even like what we're like, and I kind of obsessed with, recycling has to be the starting point to the better life, not the ending point. Where a lot of what we're trying to build in now is actually career training, like, yeah, basic literacy training, job training, with the goal, you know, my real goal is that we have a timeline that no one's a full-time collector for longer than X, because then what we really need to do is really phase out even that full-time collectors are in any community, but community households, you know, with full-time incomes are still just responsibly recycling at their plastic bank. So our real goal is to phase it in, that eventually it all just becomes community recycling. Mm-hmm. But anyone who needs it, it becomes a universal income that you can earn your career path. But agreed, you can't create something that someone's dependent on. It needs to be something designed to onboard something to the next. Otherwise, you're creating a problem you don't realize. But very, very astute, very correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so Sean, we'll just give them a few more minutes and then just to see if there's any more discussions or thoughts on this. Otherwise, everyone, you can how do you want to be contacted? If anyone has any other questions afterwards?
Yeah, you can reach out to Sean, SHAUN, at plasticbank.com, or go to plasticbank.com in our contact form, and we keep trying to make the website have more and more info. So, you know, anything you're looking for, hopefully you can find it there. And if you don't find what you're looking for, ask and we put it up on the website.
Cool. Okay, I think
I appreciate everyone who took the time to see this session.
okay. All right, so I think that's about it. I don't think there's any other questions, so I will just thanks everyone, and I'll just close it in like maybe just 30 seconds or so. Okay, thanks everyone. Yeah, that'll do. Thank you.